Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the 6-Star Business Podcast. I'm your host, Aveline Clark, and welcome to the middle of February. I can't believe how fast this year has been going already. Well, today's episode, I absolutely adore this one. My co-host is the wonderful Stephen Sandor, whom you've met before. Our guests hail from the US and the UK. We have Peter Burke. He's a self-proclaimed perfectionist, but he actually loves working for free, just helping people. He also once experienced a bomb going off in an office below him. But there's a lot more to Peter than just that. And our other guest, Christopher Fox from the US, he is just delightful. What he thrives on is solving the unsolvable problems. Definitely someone you'd like to have in your corner, right? He told us that he loves going off-road. So to get away from work and decompressing, goes off-roading, like literally away from paved roads in the southwest of the US. So that sounds like a lot of fun. More than that, these guys brought an amazing amount of wisdom, age-old truths, things that we just need to be reminded of. But there was just such camaraderie and also joy. And they reminded me that it's important in business to have fun. And Stephen and I absolutely got so much out of this. And afterwards, I know Stephen was buzzing. And you'll hear that during the conversation. So before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that I did indeed mention a couple of episodes ago that the 6-Star community was going to be launching something for women. However, our past guest, Angela Henderson, has already got that down pat. So if you are looking for something where you want to be supported as a female business owner, please go and have a look at that episode with her. And on the page, you can actually click through to her and contact her. She's got some great programs for female business owners. Here at the 6-Star community, we've actually just launched a roundtable. So we're inviting people who are of 6-Star mind. I guess it's more a kind of a vibration or an outlook. It's a way of operating or thinking and feeling. And we're inviting people to come and join the round table where we've got all of our 6-Star community coming, and we'll be fleshing out topics all around 6-Star business. What does it take to be a 6-Star business? And we've got a model that's come out of, I guess, all the conversations last year on this podcast and the book that we published in November. So we've got an amazing group of people and they'll be there, and we've got an amazing community. We want to keep the conversations going. So we're opening that up. If you are interested, please get in touch. There's a link in the notes below, and we'll just need to meet you, make sure that, it is a right fit, of course. But we are really looking forward to expanding our community and getting more people to come in and connect with other business owners who also care about people. They care about the world, their communities, their staff, and the environment, and everything that we're connected to. So that is the whole point of the 6-Star Business Roundtable. And if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, to connect with those kinds of people and deliberate and pontificate and explore and challenge and unpack different concepts, then I'd be absolutely delighted to have you on board. So please get in touch. All right, without any further ado, let's get started with our podcast today with Peter Burke and Christopher Fox. So here we are, and thank you so much for joining us. Steve, my co-host today, and we've got Peter Burke on the Isle of Wight in the UK and Christopher Fox from Orange County, California. We are a truly international podcast today. I'm very excited. Welcome everyone.
Great to be
here. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you. Steve, how are you today?
In sunny Brisbane, although it's not very sunny at the moment. I'm a little envious of Christopher and his gorgeous Newport, Orange County, and so yeah, but feeling good.
Good. Okay, so let's get this started. I would love to hear from our guests. How about just to get us going, our audience loves to know a little bit about you. So could you share with us who you are, where you are, even though I've kind of let the cat out of the bag, but where you are in the world, who you serve, and something you like to do in your spare time when you're not serving people all the time. Who'd like to kick us off?
Alphabetically, I think I'm just about there, so I'll go first. So my name is Peter Burke. I have been entrepreneurial for 30 years now. I run a couple of businesses up in Nottingham, even though I live in the Isle of Wight, and we work for blue chip companies, the likes of Mars and big name grocery businesses. I've pretty much always done that. I have also helped two other businesses get off the ground, social enterprises, and that's kept me very busy in my spare time. And I am living on the Isle of Wight because it's a more pleasant place to be locked down than London, where I have a flat and where I would have been 2 years ago most of the time. When I'm not working, friends would say books primarily. My favorite place in the world is Hay-on-Wye, a border town, England and Wales, a small town with some great pubs, cafes, and 30 bookshops. And they have festivals twice a year, and I've barely missed a festival in 2 decades. So that's a real passion. I have a couple of kids who will go to secondary school this year, so they keep me grounded. I'm currently trying to help one of them understand how to use his MIDI keyboard that I foolishly bought him and thought he'd figure out on his own, but I think I'm needed. It's good to be needed. That's what I've realized.
That's lovely. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Chris, we'll call you Chris?
Sure, you can call me Chris, Chris or Christopher. So yes, my name is Chris Fox. I'm the managing partner of Syncrasys. It's a company that I founded back in 2007, and who we serve are really anyone in the broad category of financial innovators. So our clients can be anything from a relatively new or disruptive startup in the fintech arena, or a large global bank that is doing something interesting with its financial services approach or with the technologies that they use. And what we do is we work with them to define their content marketing strategy with a strong focus on thought leadership, how they position themselves as the true and definitive experts in the areas of innovation that they're deploying to the market. And it's really exciting work. Get involved in a lot of the details of what's really happening in the global financial system. We work primarily with institutional and B2B. We don't do a lot of retail fintech work. And as I said, we've been in business since 2007 and focused exclusively on financial innovators since 2015. As far as things that I do outside of work, Peter, it's great to have another book lover in the mix. I also am a huge reader. I spend a lot of time reading. As you can see behind me, this is not a fake background. These are actual books that are part of my library, and I've got a few other rooms in the house that look pretty much just like this. In addition to that, being in Southern California, I like to spend a lot of time at the beach. And sort of for contrast, I also like to go out and explore the southwestern desert. There's just so much unsettled, unexplored territory out here to go out and venture into the deserts and the mountains. I just spend a lot of time doing that, and otherwise just enjoying living at the beach here with my partner, with our 2 cats, and as I said, a healthy library to keep me entertained when I'm not working.
It's good to see a word in action. The New York Times had an article on New Year's Eve saying people who love books around them in their house are book wrapped, and you're clearly wrapped in books, so it makes sense.
I like that word. I didn't see that article. It's a good one.
Very much so. I just from the moment, Peter, that you mentioned the Hay on Wires with the 30 bookstores, I just thought, oh, I wonder if my daughter knows about that. And so I've just taken a note of that, because she lived in the UK for a couple of years, but she is a bookworm and she'll go to every bookstore that she can find. So
she needs to be there.
Very fascinating.
The town needs her.
I'll let her know. You know, it never fails to amaze me how the guests that book in to the podcast, you know, it's random, you know, and yet there's always synchronicities. And I just love how straight away you guys just understand the power and the comfort and the, you know, just the imaginative exploration and all the things that being in books gives us. So that's wonderful. Chris, I am fascinated with the company that you started in 2007. You must have seen a lot of changes over that time from 2007, obviously 2015, you said you went exclusively into the financial services industry. What kind of changes have you seen through that time to date?
Yeah, I would say there's really a couple of layers of change that I would focus on. So one of the change would be really looking from the outside in. There's been such an enormous change over that period of time, these 13 years, where social media certainly existed in 2007, but the nature and the level of attention grabbing that social media has certainly is almost incomparable to where it was 13 years ago when people were first starting to get onto Facebook, when I'm not even sure if Instagram even existed yet. TikTok and all these other things clearly did not. So from that level, as someone who focuses on helping companies build their traction and build their credibility, all of these new channels that they need to not only actively use, but also in a reactive sense, pay attention to what's happening and to see what the conversations are about the topics that align to the products and services that they offer, but also their own reputation. What kind of chatter is happening about their reputation, especially for the larger companies. There's all sorts of reputational things that were not really much of a challenge 10, 15 years ago that are now really high risk situations where you have to be extremely mindful of that. And in turn, you have to be so aware of how people's attention is completely swamped by so many different things pulling on their attention. I want your attention. I want your attention. Look at my pictures, read my social media posts, do my thing on LinkedIn, whatever it is. It's really, really hard to cut through all that noise, and significantly harder than it was, I think, when I started doing the business. And then from the inside out, I'll keep this answer a lot shorter. It's really the incredible surge of fintech startups, whether it's around cryptocurrency, whether it's other applications of blockchain, or just other ways of using other types of technologies like artificial intelligence to support various elements of financial services. That has changed to a point where I think if you just were able to fast forward someone from 2007 to now, they would have a lot of, I guess I would say, culture shock or future shock in what they see today. People running around talking about NFTs and all these obscure things that were not really even a factor of consideration when I started the company. So those are the two main things that I've seen in that duration.
And the interesting question is how long they will last, because with Russia and China clamping down and the FT saying that Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme, that in a decade they might all be gone, potentially.
No, I think that scenario is definitely on the table. They may be gone. They may morph into something that isn't really used as a currency, but is used just, blockchain is ultimately a record-keeping technology. And being able to keep those records in a way that is secure and irrevocable and immutable. In other words, you can't go back and edit things historically. It has a lot of applications outside of currency and payment, and people are using it for experimenting around bonds, around loan documentation, and all sorts of other areas. And that might be the future of it. Not any of the things that are getting all of the buzz and chatter now, but these much lower level, more kind of like financial infrastructure stuff. I think that's another possible scenario. And a lot of it comes down to two things, right? It comes down to broadly what the public does, and a lot of it will come down to what regulators in major financial jurisdictions decide to do, whether it's here in the US, whether it's the UK, whether it's the EU, regulators in Asian markets. The decisions that they make over the next, I would say, 18 months are the decisions that will determine which of these scenarios really plays out, or something we haven't even anticipated.
It's a really interesting, I think, phase of our evolution in business, particularly because, we talked about both of you are book lovers. I like reading, but I'm also, and I'm one of those people who are bombarded daily by technology. So it'd be interesting to see your thoughts on, or hear your thoughts on how a business is able to use the history. So books, both of you love books. So the book industry is still exists because of the classic lovers. But I'm assuming that you also deal with the modern day information and you collect that. So how would a business that is trying to become a 6-star, have a 6-star experience for their clients? How do they work their way through this maze to hold on to? Should they be holding on to the past and some of the classics and adopting some of the future, or reject the future and go forward?
I think one of the things about technology is it never arrives quite as soon as we think it's going to. And those of us who are connected and reading The Economist and the Financial Times and the New York Times always think the train is closer than it actually is. And so even if all of this becomes mainstream within the next decade, the things we've been talking about, a huge number of businesses are going to be trundling on with printed materials, with some old-fashioned technologies. It's very much a mosaic that we always see in business. I don't think anything will sweep the old way away overnight. And of course, books, people are buying more books than ever. Whether they read them or just put them on the coffee table is a different question. But books are doing okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's always that overlap.
There are dilemmas. So I'm an advisor to a startup in California called bunny.money. And it was going to be called Bunny Bank, but you can't call yourself a bank if you're not a bank, although one day we hope to be. So there was a competition to choose a new name, and one of my kids came up with bunny.money, and that's now the name. We're currently crowdfunding, and we've got this dilemma. Should we offer to let people put money into crypto through the app? Is it too early? Is it a risk to the reputation? We're a B corporation, so we're for the social good. We might miss out on a lot of potential users if we don't offer crypto quite soon. But equally, we might be bringing people into a market they don't understand. So it's an ongoing debate.
So where do people feature in all of this? Inside this morphing, if you like?
Big question. People just go about their daily lives, and as long as they have a new gizmo or some new box set, the majority of people don't really care what's happening in the banking system or in the NFT world. It's for the elite primarily. And we're not even getting into, developing countries and their attitude, although El Salvador is a very interesting case recently where the people are being forced into the future in terms of Bitcoin. So I think people is a very broad question. And some people will adopt it. Some people will opt out, as with vaccines.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's also a significant slice of people that will adopt it without really even knowing that they're adopting it because some service provider has layered or packaged or productized something onto it where they don't really even know. And a couple of the comparisons that I often use is people would be surprised how baroquely complex it is to make a credit card transaction. You go to the store, it's so easy. Tap your card, you walk out with your merchandise. End of story. There's so much plumbing underneath that makes that happen with multiple layers of banks and validations and all these different things, or even just as simple as turning on a light switch. So many people, you turn on a light switch and you may have the vaguest idea of how the lights actually have turned on when you've done this, but for the most part, most people are using it without really caring too much about the details. And I certainly think that will be the case as these particular categories of financial technology evolve. They'll become transparent to the point where people won't necessarily see what they're using. They'll care about what they're able to do, what they're able to accomplish by exchanging value at that point in time, whether it's merchandise, purchases, whether it's investments, whether it's loans, whatever it might be.
I think you're right. An awful lot of people would have preferred never to do contactless payments. But when COVID came, people were pushed into that and have now accepted it faster than they would have done. So sometimes the silver lining is good because contactless is great for everyone, especially the tax man.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And kind of in parallel to that, I mean, at least here in the US, QR codes were considered a very obscure thing. And some people would use them. They really had kind of come and gone to the extent that anyone really ever even recognized what those strange squares and dots actually represented. But then with the pandemic, all of a sudden, everyone's scanning QR codes for menus, for payments, for all sorts of different things. And in that sense, it actually resurrected a technology that had fallen on its face because people really weren't that interested in it, kind of like what you were saying about contactless payment. And then all of a sudden, this new use case emerges because of a very significant and impactful global situation.
And I kind of think the guy who, and I can't remember his name, I'm ashamed to say, who invented the QR code was himself a kind of a six-star business because he refused to patent it or make any money from it. He sort of gave it to the world. And maybe that's why it languished for a while, because nobody could make money out of it.
Yeah.
But it found its place.
That's really that is fascinating. That whole the commercialization of something and the fact that it's free, and people just don't see the value in something that's free. That fascinates me.
Well, if there's no money, there's no organization to market it necessarily. And without marketing, do we have anything? Because this is one of the topics. Maybe I shouldn't rush off crypto and NFTs too quickly, but this is one of the topics that sort of brought me to this podcast. The whole question of what is a six-star business, and I think that many businesses are not six-star in terms of product or service, but purely in marketing, and they have an average or poor product, but they can market it so well. And so you can be six-star in one area.
I love that. Chris, what are your thoughts about that, given that you focus so heavily in innovation? Like if you were to step back, bird's eye view, thinking about the businesses that you work with, put that six-star lens on. What is it that makes a six-star business?
In the way that I look at it, certainly it's a bias of the kind of work that do, and I'll admit that going forward. But the idea that a business with a strong mission to innovate, even if it's innovating in a very, very niche area of an industry, there's a lot of very niche activity that happens within financial services that's completely transparent to the end user, as I was saying. But those companies that have decided that they want to break through those roadblocks, inefficiencies, their products and their innovations are ultimately a case for change. And they are, in addition to building and marketing and selling a product, they are advocates for change just by virtue of what they're putting into the market. And so let me close the loop on what I mean by that. The 6-star element to that, for me, is by positioning yourself as a thought leader, you're adding to that level of advocacy for change, because you're not only offering a product for people to buy, but you're helping them reframe their understanding of a particular inefficiency or gap in the market. You're helping them understand from a different point of view what their pain points and challenges are. And then you're helping with a solution that is different from solutions that already exist in the market. And so the thought leadership, in a way, it's a gift, right? You can spend a lot of time and energy educating the market on principles that maybe aren't fully understood, like accounting principles underneath. If you own a cryptocurrency, it's not really a currency, at least not in US regulation. It's not a security. There's all these things that it's not, but it's not really clear what it is. It's kind of like a commodity, but not really. Being a thought leader to help drive that forward so that the definition of what it means in financial terms becomes clear, it's kind of a gift to the market. Now, it's a self-interested gift, right? Because it aligns to your product strategy. Nevertheless, you're not only building a product to sell, but you're also changing and influencing the underlying sense of what makes your industry work, or your particular area of the industry work. And that's how I had seen it, and what attracted me to this whole idea of 6-star.
It's interesting you talk about the purpose of educating people and helping them to get to where they should be. Is that, do you think, the purpose of your business? Is it the mission?
I would say so.
Whilst you were talking, Christopher, I was reflecting on that whole, you have the bell curve, and you have the early adopters, and then the early majority, and the laggers, etc. So is the connection between becoming a thought leader, is it absolutely connected to a purpose? Because if your push forward is about making, money or profit, and that effort is not repaid because there isn't the necessary traction that you're receiving from the marketplace, then one might think that, well, what the hell am I doing this for? I'll find another way of getting the message over, and I'll chase another rabbit. Whereas if there's does it really require a deep-seated passion to make a change in the market for a purpose for you to keep going? What's your experience been, when you've worked with these people who are thought leaders? What drives them forward to be, to have that in their mission or vision, or however they describe it?
Yeah, and I would definitely say it is that passion for change. I'm sure there are people out there that are only in it for the money, and I'm going to come up with this really, really great. I don't necessarily want to call it a scam, but let's call it a scheme, a way that people will pay a lot for something that's very easy to do. It doesn't require a lot of effort or commitment on my part. That's not really the universe in which I operate. I really see that financial innovators have a deep passion for change because they see the inefficiencies or sometimes the inequities in the global financial system, and they have a commitment to attempt to repair those. And one of the ways that they do that is by building a product or service. They commit enormous amounts of time and energy to doing that. That passion is a really important factor behind it. And then the thought leadership, sometimes what it does is it becomes a strategy to help crystallize that passion and then take that crystal and disseminate it around the market in a way that the product itself doesn't really make it explicit, but the case for change and the passion for innovation is carried forward by the thought leadership. And that's why I think thought leadership is such an important piece of the puzzle. If it's only a product or if it's only a money-making opportunity, sure, there are people doing it, but those are certainly not the people that I'm working with. It's kind of a self-selecting group of people that have the passion to be thought leaders or interested in thought leadership strategies, and people that are not interested in thought leadership strategies typically don't have the passion to be thought leaders, and it kind of works out well in terms of a very specific segmentation of the types of people that I will work with.
So I'm going to ask an obvious, or maybe not so obvious question then, Chris. In order to be a 6-star business, does one need to have the passion and adopt thought leadership to deliver that passion and their purpose to the world?
I would say so. Whenever anyone asks me a question like that, I always try to think of the scenarios that might contradict what I think. I can't think of any at the moment. I think there has to be some level of passion, even if the passion or commitment is to providing absolute top-tier customer service. So it's not necessarily an innovation. It's just a passion for doing something in the best or most excellent way that you possibly can. That's a type of passion. I tend to skew more toward the passion for innovation and change. Not that those two things are completely separate from each other in the world of business, because one can be very focused on both innovation and excellence. But I do see, I'm having a hard time imagining how a business could be a 6-star business without some degree of passion. I mean, I suppose you could then play the trick of saying, well, if their passion is simply making a lot of money and they're doing an excellent job doing that, then maybe. I don't know. That's where I think I run to the edge of the cliff in my thinking on all of that.
I think it's true, and I think the book that set it all off in the 80s was In Search of Excellence by Peters and the other guy, where they looked at all these businesses which were successful because they looked for excellence. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that's now part of my thinking and the thinking of many people. You have to search. Innovation is part of excellence, because otherwise, if you stand still, you're not going to stay excellent for long.
Oh, so here's another question then. Can a business be 6-star without focusing on innovation?
Yes. I think it can. And that comes back to my marketing observation earlier. I certainly wouldn't name the company. I don't know how good your lawyers are, but I wouldn't name them. But there's a very successful corporation in the software business who I know well, have worked with. Their product is poor. But every time I see their advertising and marketing, I think, oh my God, I should try this. And I slap myself across the face, remind myself I have tried it. It is poor. And ironically, because of a customer of ours who used their software, we ended up, they approached us for a partnership. And I ended up going to their head office in London a couple of times and having meetings. But the second one, I was brave enough to say, this is all very well, but every project is late because it doesn't work well. It's got all these problems. And to her eternal credit, the director I was lunching with turned me around in my perception by saying, Peter, you have to understand, we're not a software company, we're a marketing company. And she was right. You think it's a software company, you're buying the software, but you're actually there for the 6-star, 7-star marketing. The innovation is on the edges because the marketing ticks all the boxes, all the innovations. But the actual product in the box is last century.
Can a business like that survive, or is that like it can be 6-star, but maybe it's got a shelf life?
I used to think so. I'm not sure anymore. I think you can. It's not quite fake it till you make it, but it's there is an element of that. I think you can get so large and so embedded. Remember, well, I say remember, I'm maybe the oldest person. I must be the oldest person here. IBM for so long dominated. You couldn't get fired for buying IBM, but it wasn't very good. It wasn't at the edge. But for a long time, they took the money, and they still do, of course. They still make a lot of money. So I think, do you know the old saying about printers and materials? You can have it quickly, high quality, or cheap. Well, you can have any two of the three. You can't have all three. And I think it's to some extent with 6-star marketing, you can have a 6-star business. You can have a 6 stars in marketing or a 6 stars in customer service or quality of product. You've got to be somewhere, but you probably won't be in all three. That's my thinking. I'm sure to reflect what Chris was saying earlier, there'll be examples to undermine what I've said or to prove the rule. But my feeling is that you tend to be 6-star only in certain areas.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there are some businesses and some categories where innovation doesn't necessarily matter as much as other aspects of the experience, whether it's the marketing experience and whether the buyer feels spoken to in some way. I think there's also, for some brands and some companies, exclusivity can be an end in itself. So I'm thinking of like a high-end luxury goods or a high-end food product. Like if let's say you're purchasing really, really high quality chocolates or other types of confectionery, or you're purchasing luxury leather goods. There's a sense of newness, right? Because they'll bring new designs or new flavors or new products to market, but it's not necessarily innovation, right? Like just because you've changed the filling of your truffle from champagne to pistachio isn't really an innovation. It's just something new. Or, just because you've changed the stitching on a particular item of apparel, not exactly innovation. But it still can deliver that 6-star experience of exclusivity and premiumness that connects with the buyer on some fundamental level that's higher than or different from just the material product itself. Just the fact that you have a shirt, just the fact that you have a piece of chocolate.
And then that makes me think about, the businesses where there's been a family business and it's gone for generations. Those businesses, and they've been around for so long and they care about their staff and, it's like a family. Would you call those, I haven't got an example in mind directly, but I was having a conversation about this yesterday and I wonder if those businesses are 6-star in some way because they've lasted for so long, right? And they may not be innovative. Think about maybe it's maybe there's a restaurant or there's something where the customs have been passed down from the generation to generation to generation, and things are always done that way. I don't know if you can think of an example, but I'm wondering if those kind of businesses, we established in 1875 and we're still around. Are they 6-star? Because of the longevity and the success in maintaining their culture and their brand.
Maybe it's a bit like quantum mechanics, and some rules apply to large objects and some rules apply to small objects. And so it's quite possible at a certain level to survive without innovating. But then if you try and scale up, you probably have to.
It's a really good point. I was wondering when quantum mechanics was going to come into this conversation.
Go check your cat, see how it is.
Well, they're not in the room, so I don't really know who they are.
But it does, that sort of That's a really interesting sort of thought around, is a six-star business a business that is excellent at its marketing strategy, or is it? And if we can't have all of them, which is the one that would be the one that you would want? Is it? So what is it? Which one is of? Which one would you prefer?
I like the chocolate box. I want them all in little sections. So
if you just like a box of chocolates
with no spring surprise or whatever.
So if you couldn't make money, but you provided if you wouldn't take over the world, but you could provide a wonderful experience for your customers and met your purpose. Is that the definition of a six-star business, or is a six-star business something that is, has an impact on the direction of an industry, for example?
I think you've described my businesses, so I'm hoping it's a six-star business. So we've been around for 3 decades. We look after our staff. We've got many staff beyond 2 decades with us. Customers are sometimes into 2 decades as well. We look after them. So that's kind of how we are, but we're never going to be a multinational. But we do have the innovation. So again, you've got different elements.
No, that's right. I'm right there with you, Peter, on that. I had a similar reaction. That sounds exactly like my business. And some of the clients that I work with today are the same clients that I work with when starting in 2007, and many of them are multi-year. We're a small company, but so we take a kind of a 6-star approach with staff as well, as far as making sure people are happy and well cared for. And I certainly like to think that we're having at least some influence on the way that marketing is done within the world of fintech. But yeah, there's no aspiration to turn it into a multi-billion-dollar company either.
Talking of the staff, you remind me of another paradox of 6-star business, which is that if a 6-star business is going to treat its staff well, pay its staff well, above minimums and so on, then it is rarely going to be the cheapest in the marketplace. So this brings up the problem that if you're selling B2B, then your 6-star has little merit to the procurement people who are assessing your tender. There's no box for we're a wonderful business that looks after people. It's just how cheap are you and how quickly can you deliver. So there are limits there again in terms of the advantage to the business of being 6-star when you're B2B. It's probably totally different B2C.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm thinking through the question, and one of the ways that I approach that has been, I'm very clear in the sales cycle as going from that initial idea of client interest and then pushing it through to a yes from the business, and then getting it through procurement departments at some of the larger clients. It's really about offering something that is not a commodity. So even though we do content marketing strategy, and there are other content firms, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of content firms out there. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of writers that are able to write at least something in the area of finance and financial marketing. It's really positioning as something that there is no competitor. There is no other company that is able to offer the suite of services in the way that we do it. And I'm not saying that as a point to brag so much as to say that by positioning it as something that there's no scenario in which the procurement departments can compare apples to apples, because there are no other apples. There's just this beautiful orange that they can, do you want this or not? And that becomes the question, rather than do you want to choose between this cheap apple or this really expensive apple? And so that's how, at least for my business, how I've been able to handle that challenge of, procurement teams are tough, and you get in touch with that procurement contact, and they say, well, we have other other content creation shops or other marketing agencies that are charging us this, and you're charging us that, and why? And ultimately, I've been pretty successful in breaking through with that argument, and I think it's legitimate. It's not just kind of a way to manipulate. It's a genuinely true statement that the thing that's on offer from my company is not something that can be replicated by another, and that the price points are fair for that reason.
A friend of mine uses the term reassuringly expensive.
No, there is that too, right? If you offer to do something that the market value of it is, I don't know, just make up numbers. If like the market value of that contract or comparable contracts are around 50,000, and you come in there saying that you can do it for 7,000, it's likely to raise a lot of eyebrows. Versus you're reassuringly expensive. I like that phrase a lot for that reason.
It's not mine, so you can use it. So that sort of, I'm leading that whole positioning, Christopher. That's you're talking about being in a position where the product that you offer is matching the organisation. You've got reputation. There would be people that would be offering testimonials about that. Mm-hmm. Is that can you and when we're talking about innovation, as there seems to be a theme here that innovation is very much at the edge of this conversation, and I know in previous podcasts where two people have not known each other, there's always been this synchronicity that has just evolved for some reason. Could you have built your businesses, gentlemen, without off the back of just technology, or does it require a combination of that and the human contact? And what's the balance? At what point in time do you move from technology to the human connection for a six-star business, or the other way around?
Technology on its own is not going to give you a business unless maybe you have a patented item you can sell to someone else so they can make a business. In the early years of our business, I did an awful lot of better mousetraps, and probably still do, because we never fully learn. But the world just doesn't beat its path to those things just because the technology is good. You've got to have relationships and meet people and talk to people, whether that's MPs to get in the VIP lane in this country, or whether it's just connecting on LinkedIn and other networks. You have to do it. The technology is the bones, but the flesh, the human flesh, is needed on top, I think.
That makes a lot of sense to me. The technology that I use for my business, it's certainly enabling technology. It makes things easier. It's typically not very sophisticated technology, right? We're talking about email, we're talking about video conferencing, and we're talking about sometimes using a shared documents platform like Google Docs. In theory, it wouldn't be particularly efficient, but all of the business that my company does, we could do using typewriters and telephones. Now, we don't do that, and it would be incredibly discourteous to clients to assume that they would want to do business with us that way. But really, it's about having really good conversations, getting into really the depths of our clients' passion for change and their innovation agenda, and then developing a strategy and then the resulting content that comes from it. So that the technology is certainly helpful, and then there are these other technologies that are starting to emerge. They don't scare me yet, but there are all these platforms that now claim that they can write articles for you using exclusively AI, and you just give them some seed content, and it generates additional content that's like it. I've experimented with them just out of curiosity. I don't think there's any risk to my business anytime soon from them, given what they turn out.
I've tried them as well. Yeah,
maybe one day. Who knows?
They're only fraction. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say they're only fractionally ahead of the old Dilbert mission statement generator. If you ever used that years ago, it's probably still there somewhere. But you're right, they will get there.
They will get there, and that's when I can just turn around and go back to all the books behind me and just not worry about any of it.
And therein is a great example of where innovation for the sake of innovation is not going to enable a 6-star business, and it's certainly not the thing that has enabled both of you to sustain successful businesses over the decades. It's people, relationships, care, and I'm sure that it goes beyond that, right? You've got to actually care about people. You've got to care about their results, and you care about their businesses and demonstrate that and become friends with these people.
So true. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's never going to go away, I don't think.
No, just like the books are never going to go away. We can innovate as much as we like to take those books and, put them online and do fancy things with the words electronically. But ultimately, the book stays. A book is a book. It's been around for thousands of years and it will stay.
Yeah, there's no worries about it being unplayable after 20, 30 years because the format's wrong.
Or you don't have a hard disk to store it on. Yeah, and I hope relationships, I hope we don't get into this situation where my AI can, or my avatar can talk to your avatar and leave me out of the picture.
Hopefully, I agree. What would be, we're kind of heading towards the end, and I'd love some kind of summary thoughts, I suppose. And a question that comes to mind is, what would you say is the most important ingredient? And I know we've covered lots of topics around this and said that you can't have all of the ingredients. So what would you say is the most important ingredient to creating a sustainable 6-star business?
Well, I think you cover it in the book you've published already with the sense of purpose, and we've touched on that as well. I really don't think there'll be many exceptions to that sense of purpose. And even to be fair, the software company I was talking about earlier, without naming them, they give a lot to charity. So there is a sense of purpose there as well. So I think that's the most important thing, because then you care enough to look after the customers. But it's the blend. You still need that innovation, that spark of something. It's tapestry. I'm sorry. Great. No one magic bullet.
Yeah, sorry for all those that were listening, thinking you got to this point of the episode and didn't hear what the magic bullet was.
And here are the 6 steps to success.
But I would say there's kind of a theme that wraps them all together, at least from the way that I'm looking at it, which is that whether that purpose manifests itself as innovation, whether it manifests itself as social impact, exclusivity, like we were talking about earlier, high-touch customer relationships, it seems that there's always this dimension to it of a commitment to something better. Somehow or other, that there's a commitment to make something better, whether it's better relationships, better product, better service, better innovation, whatever it is. And that does seem to at least loosely tie some of all these other concepts that we've talked about as elements or ingredients to a 6-star business. You can use that umbrella of purpose, and I think that works really well. But the idea of purpose ultimately is, if someone's purpose is to make the world worse, well, first of all, I don't really want to talk to them. Second of all, I still don't think they would count as a 6-star business, even if it's very purpose driven. However, if it's a commitment to making the world better in whatever way you understand the world, in whatever way you understand better, which will differ from person to person, and that's really where it comes down for me is that sense of betterness.
You've just defined every political party as a six-star business.
Well, I guess there's always that difference between saying and doing, right?
Okay. If you're going to be awkward about it, yes, that's true.
I love that. That's a nice way of wrapping the whole, the purpose, and giving it some intention, some positive intention to, and then that drives you forward and drags people with you and challenges you, and the rainbow then appears, I guess.
Yeah, It starts with that, and then you need the tapestry. Beautiful. I've absolutely loved this conversation. We are heading to the end, and I'd love to finish up by asking both of you, could you leave our listeners with something simple, piece of advice, a nugget, a takeaway, anything that comes to mind in context of this conversation?
You will edit this bit out, won't you? So it looks like we instantly had a brilliant idea. I'm looking out the window and I can see an almost full moon looking down at me, and I think probably I'm going to say something maybe slightly cheesy, but you've got to shoot for the moon. That's the kind of the innovation, wanting to do something different. But stay grounded, stay on Earth, and remember that you're a human who needs to interact with other humans and be kind.
Beautiful. Thank you, Peter.
I like that. Even comparatively looking at a full sun rather than a full moon. I love that one. I guess the way that I would put it is that, you really have to be who you are in the world and then go do that. And you have to say it. And that combination of, really advocating for what you are trying to accomplish, what is your personal mission and purpose in the world, and then actually going and doing that and fulfilling that purpose, it's really there. And it's hard to give it any kind of quantitative or even qualitative criteria to say, if the following things are true, you will know that you are acting in alignment to purpose in a way that will drive you forward. But I think, I don't know, there's somehow some fundamental human capability where if we are quiet with ourselves enough in the right way, we start to get those indications, that sense of discernment that this is right, and that I'm now operating on purpose. And so, tuning into that, and then being willing to switch to this full-throated advocacy for that purpose in the world, and going out there and implementing it, however you do it, however you advocate for it.
Love it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Steve, my co-host today. What an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a truly global episode, this one. Much gratitude to you all.
Very enjoyable. Lots of food for thought, and which I will, with a glass of Australian red wine in hand, very shortly, I'll think on what we've talked about.
Thanks.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Chris, you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait a little for the wine.
I will. I would feel a little awkward about doing that at 12:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday.
You could always put a bit of brandy in a coffee, or scotch in a coffee, or something. Maybe.